Hi, welcome to ShowMeTheCurry.com. I'm Anuja.
And I'm Hithal. And today we're making a basic vegetable stock or a broth. And it's one of the easiest things that you can do, but sometimes we just don't do it.
Right, it's just so convenient to sometimes just go out and buy stuff. But if you have the fresh ingredients and the time and the patience and everything to make it, there's nothing like fresh stuff. So let's get started.
So for our vegetable broth or our stock, we're going to start with a heavy bottom stock pot. So get like a nice big one.
Right.
Put all this stuff in it.
And we're going to put about a tablespoon of oil in this. Now this we're using as a canola or a vegetable oil is fine. But if you're definitely sure you're going to be using the stock to make like Italian food, then I think olive oil would be perfect. But at this point we don't know what we're going to be using it for. So it's in there, but we haven't turned on the stove yet.
Right. And the reason is we're going to add some garlic to it, and we don't want our garlic to burn. So we're going to add this in and then turn the stove on.
So now Hithal is just smashing it, rough smashing it, just so that it releases all the flavor and everything once it's in the oil. This is 8 garlic cloves, and they were actually pretty good size ones. So I'm going to turn on the stove at this point. It's on medium.
So while our oil is heating up, these are some of the vegetables we're going to use today. And the key thing about using vegetables for your broth is the fresher the vegetables are, the fresher tasting your broth is going to be. So try not to use the vegetables that are on their way out and just try to get nice fresh vegetables for your broth. But we're going to chop these vegetables into nice big chunks.
This is starting to warm up. The oil is kind of hot. So we're going to add in 1 bay leaf, half a teaspoon of whole peppercorn. This is to taste.
And now one by one we're just going to keep adding all our vegetables in. We have 2 large onions.
The carrots look so fresh.
And the best thing is you don't have to peel the carrots. You just wash them and put them in.
All right.
So these are 4 large carrots.
Now Hithal has actually kept the heads of the carrots, because anyway it's going to be taken out.
And less work.
Yes.
2 large tomatoes. So we're also using celery in our stock, and celery usually comes in a big rib, bunch like this. And the thing about celery is when you wash it, you can't just put it under the tap and just rinse it off, because when you pull off each of these stalks, a lot of times there's a bunch of dirt on the inside. So you have to pull each stalk off and rinse it under the water and make sure it's nice and clean. Right. And if it has nice leaves like this, yeah, use the leaves. They really add a lot of flavor.
Absolutely. And we're going to now add, we've chopped up the celery. There are 4 stalks of celery. Again, big chunks, and we're going to add it to the stock. It's looking full.
Now we have our spring onions. If you have access to a leek, that works very well inside of a stock. But if you don't have a leek, then this is kind of a good substitute if you have just a couple of spring onions.
Four stalks of spring onions chopped. And to this we're going to add about fresh parsley, and this is about half a bunch, approximately 10 to 12 sprigs, and we're just going to put the whole thing because that way it's easier to pull it out later. And to this we're going to add salt to taste, but be careful because you're always going to add salt later on when you have to actually do the cooking.
Right. So we'll let these veggies kind of cook down for about 5 minutes, not too long, 5 to 6 minutes, and then we'll go ahead and add our water in there.
So it's been about 5 minutes. The vegetables have kind of started sweating because of the salt, and that's perfect. And also the onions, if you notice, have kind of become translucent-ish. So we're ready to go on with this process now.
Simple process that is. We have 1 gallon of water that we're just going to add to this.
So 1 gallon is approximately 16 cups of water.
So once our water's in there, we can crank up the heat and let this mixture come to a nice boil. And once it does that, we turn it down to a very low simmer, and we're going to let it simmer for 1 hour.
Okay, the vegetable broth has come to a nice roaring boil. And what we had done to just speed up the process was just cover it so that the boiling starts a little earlier. And now that it's boiling really well, we're going to turn down the stove to a low and allow it to just simmer for about 45 minutes to an hour.
Now, of course, the thing with vegetable stock is that 1 hour is almost your limit that you want to cook it to. The more and more you cook the vegetables, they lose their flavor, and then that lost flavor kind of translates into your stock or your broth. So 1 hour, 45 minutes to 1 hour, that's your optimal time, and don't cook it any further than that.
So let's turn on the timer, 45 minutes, and we'll be back. So it's been 45 minutes on the clock, and look at it. You can see all the vegetables have lost their color and are wilted basically. So it's actually perfect. We're going to turn it off and allow it to cool down.
Now, if you're going to be using this broth or stock right away, then use it right away. But if you're not going to be using it, it's perfect for keeping for a later time. So you can take a sink full of ice or something and just leave your pot inside, and that'll just quickly reduce the temperature of that, and after which you can freeze it or put it in the refrigerator for a later time.
And another thing we wanted to mention is we're going to drain out the broth. Now the liquid part is the broth or the stock, but the vegetables itself, they're going to be trashed. You cannot use them, and you should not use them. What you can do is you can pick one of those carrots or any of those vegetables and taste it, and it'll have no flavor at all. All the flavor has got transferred to the broth. So do not use them for anything. Just trash them. You've got everything that you possibly could out of them.
And you feel bad. I know I felt bad. The first time I ever made broth, I thought, God, I can't throw away all these vegetables. But really, do that little experiment and just try a piece of that, and you'll see what we mean. But anyway, if we're going to freeze this broth, then be sure you can use like a freezer-style zipper bag. And a quick way to do it is just put your bag inside of a coffee mug like this. And that way it gives it some stability. Fold it over the edges, and now fill your broth in there. But again, wait till it's cooled down before you try to do this.
We keep saying broth and stock and broth. Nowadays, of course, they are really interchangeable. The main difference between the two is that stock has got bones in it. So anytime that you use any meat bones, or you're just making the stock out of bones, it is stock. If you're using just the meat portion or just the vegetables, it's broth. But there's very little difference. Either it's vegetarian or it's not. So really it does not make a very big difference. So here's our broth. It's ready to use. And we have a lot of recipes on our website that require broth, stock, again, whatever you want to call it. It's just to name a few. There is a lot of soups. Yes, the Spanish rice or the Mexican. Then the Manchurians.
Billya salad.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
And excellent. You can just store it in your refrigerator for about a week or so, and or freeze it like Ethel mentioned earlier. And join us again on another episode of ShowMeTheCurry.com.
Adding a pinch of spice to your life.